Hello, beautiful and handsome world changers. Welcome back to the Nomad CEO Podcast. I'm Kenz, your host, and I am so excited to talk about today's episode because it is very real in my life in this moment, something that I am still working through and thinking through. And I wanted to record on it because I think sometimes hearing the real raw emotion of what someone's currently in and figuring out can be really powerful. And at the same time, there's certain parts of things that I'll talk about today that I feel like I'd figured out a lot of this. I'm sure there's going to be layers of learning a long time ago. So it's a dual, topic in the sense of there's some overcoming that's already happened. There's scars, not wounds. And then there's certain things that I still feel like I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder with. And I'm also excited I don't listen to my own episodes. I am sure one day I will to go back and be like, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. That's what I'm believing, right? Is that we just are where we are. And I love that reflection. But maybe this is one I'll personally listen to in the future and realize, wow, I forgot that my mindset was there at one point because it's so far away from that now. So, and for you, if you ever listen to this, now and then maybe in the future if you choose to, and hopefully there'll be an evolution of mindset. So anyways, all that being said, I do want to point out I'm currently in Bucharest, Romania. Actually, I'm outside of Bucharest. I'm in a small, and it's actually not that small, but it's I don't even know what you want to call it, a suburb, if you will, of Bucharest, and it's Chiajna. And every time I talk to Romanian, I feel like I say it right because I hear them say it, and then when I say it on my own, I don't feel like I say it right. But Chiajna, you can laugh at me. It's fine. I'm still working on it. Anyways, and I'm in an Airbnb right now. And funny, with all due love and respect to the hosts and to this actual Airbnb, I'm very grateful. It does not look like it does in the pictures. The kitchen's not in the same spot. There's not a table like it showed. The couch is different. Like it's very different. But that's okay. So I don't have a table. I have Jimmy rigged this chair/box setup, and I'm recording this here. So it's kind of exciting because part of starting why I wanted to start this podcast was to record it all around the world and to interview people that I meet. And so our interviews come out on Tuesdays and these solo episodes come out on Thursdays, and just kind of fun. I'm excited to see the spaces and places in addition to the people that I get to interview in different parts of the world. So this is where I'm currently at. Okay. All that being said, what I want to talk about today is luck. Have you ever worked your ever living tail off for something that you sacrificed, you did, you sweat for it, blood, sweat, and tears, you hustled your muscle, you delayed gratification, you did things that others either didn't understand what you're doing and maybe said things that weren't positive about it, but you did it anyways because you had a dream and a vision, a goal for your life that you delayed for a long, long time. And then that thing that you worked so hard for finally comes to pass. And you're like, whoa, I'm living it. I'm living the dream. This is fruition of what I've worked and prayed and dreamt about for so long. And you do all of that. And then you have people, even some of the people that saw the sacrifice that you made, to say things like, well, aren't you lucky? Wouldn't that be nice? You have it so easy. You have it so good. Man, if I could, if only. All these different things. And I say this because never in my life have I had this happen in this way. And part of my disclaimer in starting this episode is something that I'm still working through is I still very much so in certain ways have a chip on my shoulder, meaning that I still get a little defensive. I still have a part of me that's like, oh my gosh, bucko, if you only knew. Like, if you only knew. And part of why I share all this is because that's actually another reason why I want to start this podcast is I feel like social media just glosses over the reality and what's happening behind the scenes and the real time stuff that's going on in someone's life. And I wanted to fill those gaps because before this came, my lifestyle as it is now, and I'm not trying to paint that it's this perfect lifestyle or have it all figured out or it's something that you listener would even want. That's not my point. I've had multiple people mention that. It's something I really wanted. So I'm speaking more to those people because this isn't what everybody wants. But I'm in this place where I look back on the decade, no joke, the decade that it took of me distinctly knowing that I wanted to become a nomad and I wanted to build my own business, that it took to get here. And the long detour and the many ups and downs and the many nights that I cried myself to sleep and the many, many sacrifices I made along the way, just wondering, hoping, praying, and working my ever living tail off to make this happen. And I think back to those times, and it's for the people also in the thick of it, that if you're in the heat of the sacrifice, you're in the heat of the battle, right? You're in the arena getting your booty whooped. And I want to speak to you because on the other side of it, it is, well, number one, so much better than I could imagine. Like, I still have a long ways to go, right? I'm still figuring things out. I have not arrived. I don't believe in an arrival. It's just really freaking cool to be in this spot now. But something I didn't expect was how much it bothers me when people tell me that I'm lucky. So anyways, I want to share that. But I've been reflecting on it because this is the month of February that I'm recording this of 2026. And the topic in our mastermind in World Changers, the Epic Collective, that's the name of the mastermind, we have a topic of each month. And our topic this month is the power of the spoken word. And so we have one of the calls, because we meet every week, was on the power of the spoken word, but then a group discussion around it. And the question was, what are the words that you're going to remove from your dialogue in health, wealth, relationships? And what are the words that you're intentionally going to add? One of the words that I was like, I need to intentionally add this in my relationships, my dynamics, my conversations with people, because this is like bothering me for many reasons. And I want to understand why, is curiosity. And so I started to get curious with myself of, Mackenzie, why are you feeling this like defensiveness and almost quite frankly, even a victim mentality to, and I wouldn't call it like full victim mode, but just like, oh, if you only knew, like I've had that thought. And I feel like that is the mindset of a victim for so much of it. It's like, if you only knew what I've been through. And I've noticed that in myself. And I've worked so hard at not having the victim mentality that I think I'm like, okay, line, don't go back there, redirect, discipline my mind, don't think that way. So I've gotten curious with myself that I believe will then stem into more curiosity and conversations with people, because this is something that's been said. I'm talking almost on a daily basis. Like I talk to a lot of people, and when you talk to people like, oh, what do you do? Where do you live? That comes up, especially when you travel. So I tell people I actually travel full time. I travel and work. So I get this response more frequently because that's the nature of the conversations. And no joke, 80% of the time people are like, oh, it must be nice, so lucky. And I think it's just because of the volume that it's been happening. I need to be reflective in this sense, right? So what I've been discovering is part of what irks me when people say that, and it's not even just what they say, but it's the energy that I feel between us, is I feel a disconnection. I feel a disconnection, not with everyone, but I felt it with enough people. And it's minor in some ways. There's been a couple people that are like a little crass about it. I'm like, interesting. Okay. More reflection of you than it is of me, but that's interesting. But I feel a disconnection. And by the nature of my wiring, who I am, who humans are, we're all wired for connection. And my own personality type, if you will. And I appreciate personality types and stuff like that to understand you. Not that I live by the label by any means. But there's one I took recently called the color code personality. I'd never taken it before. I was listening to a gal talk about it. I was like, ooh, what am I? And I'm blue. Okay, so that's the intimate one. That's the relational, deep, like want to connect with people. I'm like, shocker. But I that was helpful too, because it's like, yeah, no, that makes sense why it's bothering me, because I feel a disconnection of me sharing something that I'm excited about. Like, this is the reality. This is now my life that I've worked very hard for. But in me saying that and sharing that with people, I now feel this disconnection with some of them. And it bothers me because I want more than anything to connect with you. And so it's been this interesting like dance, if you will, in certain conversations of how do I show up and not dim my light, if you'll call that a light, it depends on the person you talk to, and, help say what's possible of like, hey, this is available to, I shouldn't say anyone, because everyone has different situations in their lives. And yet at the same time, I could probably say anyone, because there's been people that have come out of way worse situations in their life and done tremendously more things. But so many people could make this reality if they deeply wanted it to be. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people are currently on that path. They just haven't arrived yet, just like my journey was 10 years to get here. I think that's the first thing that I then have this, I react. I haven't reacted in like a big emotional way by any means, but I feel a reaction coming up within me of this emotional response of like, you don't even know, And so I've gotten a little defensive at times. Again, it hasn't created tension or anything like largely negative. It's just I'm such a hyper-aware person around emotion and energy that even a little something that comes up, I'm in tune with. And so anyways, I've noticed that like, oh, this can breed disconnection. And the other thing as well is then it's gotten me to reflect on times in my life where I was in the thick of it and I thought about other people living my dream, traveling the world, working for themselves, whatever, and thinking, oh, they must be lucky. They must have been handed something that I didn't have. They must have had a lucky relationship or opportunity. And this is part of why I think social media bothers so many people and can be such a concern, is that we make these massive assumptions and we see the highlight reel, but we don't actually see the path it took to get there. And you know what they say about an assumption? Makes an ass out of you and me. And I've done it. So in reflecting on all this, I'm like, I've been so guilty of the same thing. And I don't think I've said the words to a ton of people like, oh, you're so lucky or whatever, but I've certainly thought it. No question about it have I thought it and been like, oh, they must have had a different upbringing or had, whatever, these different things happen. And I had an amazing upbringing. I'm not hating on that at all. I had incredible opportunities and amazing family. But just the stories that we can tell ourselves to try to fill the gap of where they are versus where we are and where we want to be. And in my opinion, I think the antidote to that is curiosity. Coming back to that word of, I wonder, how did they get there? What did that look like? And I've also learned that anyone that's on a mountaintop in their life, because we're all human, none of us are above the laws of success and above the principles of how life works, that they're probably in a valley before the mountaintop. And I wonder what that valley was. Probably many valleys. And quite frankly, not to be a Debbie Downer, but 'tis the flow of life that if someone's on a mountaintop right now, they're going to be in a valley at some point in some capacity in the future. And again, power of the spoken word, I'm not speaking that, but I'm just saying life is not always perfect. And I had someone that was an influence in my life at one point say this saying that the sun doesn't shine on the same dogs behind all the time. Say it again. The sun doesn't shine on the same dogs behind all the time. Kind of a quirky visual if you think about it. But the point of that saying is that if someone's riding the high of life in the spotlight, like they're in the flow state, things are working out, then that's a season for them. It's going to get rough at some point in some way, somehow, because that is life. That's just how it works. And so my opinion, why not? And this is something I learned to do. So this is me more speaking now from experience because I used to do this a lot, is why don't I get curious about their journey to get where they are and learn from them and study them and say they did certain activities, certain action habits, they met certain people, they made certain choices that I have not made yet, or maybe I'm in the process of making and I just haven't been making long enough that I might not be on the wrong path. I just might not be on the path long enough, right? They might be at the peak up the mountain that I'm on that same trail headed up there. They just got there before me, right? And in this perspective. And so now get curious about what did that look like? And then encourage them and say, wow, good for them. And thank you, person, because you're an example of something I'm working towards, or you're an example of overcoming and breakthrough that I can look to and inspire me on my hard days in my journey to remind myself that if they can, I can too. And this reflective process has brought me back to affirmations that I used to speak. I'm kind of a rapper. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I'm a wannabe rapper, but I like to rhyme from time to time. And yeah, anyways, but when I've created affirmations over the years, they typically have a rhythm to them. And I'm sure over time on this podcast, I'll read some of them, but nonetheless, I say all that because I like things that stick, because it's like a little thing that I can say. And something that I used to say a lot, and it like created this new groove in my brain, was I refuse to compare. I simply encourage. I refuse to compete. I simply create. I was so deep in comparison and competition from massive insecurity from how I looked as a woman, my body type. I'm naturally athletic. I have big calves and broad shoulders. I'm just built this way. So whether I'm super lean and fit, or if I've times in my life that I've carried extra weight, my build is broad shoulder, big calf girl. And I used to compare myself to the tiny little petite girl that, didn't look like me. And I've been in relationships that men would then compare me, the person that I loved and cared for, I was not enough for. And they would compare me drastically. And I know a lot of people compare and it's like part of human nature, but I'm talking like to a big degree. So it's something I had to overcome, and I'm not alone. I know most people have to overcome that. But man, the antidote for me of comparison was encouragement. That instead of being like, oh, like I wish I looked like her, or I wish my body was this way or whatever, it's like, you know what? I got to encourage myself. Like, even like, I got to work with what God gave me here and just love and accept myself. And now when people call my big calves, like, I don't know, I'm like, yeah, these suckers carry me through, man. Like, they're strong. They carry me up mountains. I get a lot of steps most days. Like, should watch me work out. Like, we get after it, me and these calves, versus before I'd be like, oh my gosh, like so insecure, and then compare. Versus I'm like, I encourage myself now, and I encourage other women. Like, wow, that's a beautiful woman. I like, look at her go. Like, get it, girl. That's amazing. For a lot of guys, I'm sure that's the ideal. Like, that's good for you, right? And it's this freeing place to be, encouraging people. And then the competition. Now, if you have done the Strengths Finder 2.0 assessment, there's 34 strengths we all have. We all have our own combination of them. One of my top 10 strengths, not the top 5, but top 10, is competition. So I definitely value competition. I'm an athlete through and through. You put me on a team in any type of sport, I'm gonna work to win. That's just who I am. I'm not talking about that type of competition. I'm talking about a self-worth, like achievement, to feel that I'm better than because I feel like I'm less than without that achievement. I'm talking about that kind of competition. And because, for example, when I'm in the competition now of, like, say a game, if I lose, that has no indication on my self-worth at all. It is not. I'm still enough. I'm still lovable. I might be disappointed. I might be bummed. Might be a little upset, or like evaluate my performance or whatever. And to me, that's so different. Growing up an athlete, to look at it that way of like, at the end of the day, I put my head on the pillow at night. I know I'm still enough, right? And I'm worthy. But the competition of like, I have to achieve this certain level. I have to have this type of recognition, or I need this person that I want their approval to say certain things to me that I formulate my brain to then feel enough. Like, I have to compete to earn their love or their approval or recognition or whatever. I was drenched in that for years. And what freed me was, instead of competing and losing energy looking to the left and losing energy looking to the right and putting this very unrealistic and heavy responsibility on certain people in my life to give me recognition and affirmation. I'm a words of affirmation girl. That's one of my love languages. Like, that was so much just wasted energy, and it was outward energy. But when I decided to turn it in and say, you know what, Mackenzie, at the end of the day, like, and that was like a long, hard road of just hitting the wall so many times of wanting recognition and not getting it. And just honestly feeling kind of like just gross, kind of ick, right? Of just, man, this is so empty. This is so fleeting. And I've been in high competition environments for a long time. And so, there's only so much of that you can take before you snap and you're like, I got to live my life differently. Like, this is not healthy or healing for me at all. This is not, and quite frankly, when I got the recognition, it wouldn't be as good because then it would flee. It came quick and then it left. So even when I won or I achieved or I conquered, it's like, oh yeah, look at her go. Yeah, look at me. But then it would be gone. And so then I was in this cycle again of trying to earn it. And it just was, it was so empty. And so anyways, I then switched my focus to say, I'm going to create. I'm going to look inward. What are my gifts? What have I been given? There's a great podcast that I did with Lori McDowell. This will come out after that because I just recorded her interview earlier today. And she talks about 4 things to find your sweet spot in your life and your purpose. And I believe that the essence of creation from the inside out is the intersection of these 4 things. And it's finding what you love to do. Like, what would you do for free? What would you do if people didn't pay you because you love it so much? What are you gifted in? Like, what are the strengths that you've been given? Just like Strengths Finder is one way to help evaluate that. But what do people tell you that you're so good at that you don't even think about? You just do. And it's natural for you. It's a gift of yours. 3, what does the world need? What's the gap? What does, whether it's a certain demographic of people, do they need resources? Do they need help? What does that look like? Or the world at large, maybe a messaging, whatever that might be. And then 4th, what will people pay for, right? What is valuable enough in the eyes of other people that they will exchange their hard-earned money for that thing, whether it's a product, a service, you name it. And to me, it's the intersection of these 4 things is the essence of creativity to then add value to the world. That's, hey, regardless of what someone recognizes or how, much better this does than something else or worse it does than something else, quite frankly, it doesn't matter because this is from the inside out and it's the beautiful creation, in my opinion, that I've been designed to do, that I've tapped into. And now I can live in the abundance and the joy and the fulfillment of that. I find my fulfillment and excitement and not necessarily my worth in that, but there's so much good energy around it that I'm not then trying to find and pull on this energy from other people to feel good about me. So it's an inside out, like it's a light that you would emit into the world, and you become, instead of needing the spotlight, you become the lighthouse. So you don't need other people to put their eyes on you to feel worthy and valuable or lucky, but rather you say, I already am enough. I have it within me. And whether you see that or not, I'm here to shine a light on you and to see you. And it totally changes the lens of it's about me to now it's about you. Like, I'm good. I don't need you to see me because I'm good here. Or maybe I have certain people in my life that at times I do believe that people are valuable and we need that. But I'm not trying to pull from people. For me, this is where my faith comes in, and you can believe whatever you want to believe. This is just my story, right? So take it or leave it. You can fast forward. It doesn't matter to me. But I know my relationship with God and my boy Jesus, like, he never grows weary of me going to him. I could go to him every second of every day, and it's a source that will never run dry. But when I've tried to put that on other people, man, that's a lot for them to carry. And I say all of this because, to me, starting with the statement of you're so lucky, and just kind of that little chip on my shoulder, the little eye twitch that I get. And I first started to kind of get this when I led a retreat to Fiji, a handful of months ago. And someone said that to me, and it was like that day, it was the first time this kind of hit me that I was like, I need to work through this, right? And I remember looking down at my watch. So this watch that I wear, and it tracks my sleep. And it had said that my average amount of sleep that I had gotten the month leading up, so August of 2025, I'd moved out of my apartment, my 2-bed, 2-bath, sold a lot of my stuff. I was preparing for this retreat, preparing to become a full-time nomad, still working full-time, and then some. Like, it was a lot. And I remember I averaged about 4 hours of sleep for that month. That is not a lot of sleep. Now, I'm a fiend for sleep. Sleep's so important. And so that's not my normal, mind you. And I don't mean that as a badge of honor of like, look at how little sleep I got. I mean it like, that was a sacrifice that I didn't plan to pay, but I just did what I had to do when I had to do it to then have that result, right? So to me, is it lucky to average 4 hours of sleep a night for a month? No. That is a willingness, right? And guys, not because I'm so good. Like, I'm really not that good. I suck at most things. I'm reminded almost daily of the things that I'm weak at, okay? If there's anything I'll hang my hat on, though, that I'm like, yeah, this is part of me, is I'm a freaking workhorse. Like, I will fight for what I love. I'm a lover and a fighter, baby. Not one or the other. I am both. And so I say all of that because perhaps when you're listening to, if you're going through it and people are calling you lucky, I feel you, I hear you, and how can we then get curious? This is what I'm working on. And ask questions of that person of, okay, interesting you say that. Tell me more. Where did that come from? And taking a curious heart and spirit to then open up, and my hope is to create more connection, which is really what I want. I want to see you and I want you to see me. Because when you say I'm lucky, I don't feel like you see me. I feel like you see this story that you made up in your head of me. And then I don't see you. I see my own defensiveness versus taking curiosity and saying, where does that come from? And it can create a dialogue and a conversation around that perception, right? And in my hope is that that conversation can be a liberating conversation for both sides. And if you're the person that's saying that or thinking that about people, hopefully the mindset of refusing to compare and simply encouraging and refusing to compete can be a liberating thought process for you. And whatever you need, this is the thing. I've been personally growing and developing long enough that I used to overlook these little things a lot. And as time's gone on, I've realized, so much of the fruit in our life, whether it's good fruit or bad fruit, healthy fruit or unhealthy fruit. And by fruit, I mean results. I mean lifestyle. I mean outward expressions of success. And I'm not just talking about money. Health of relationships, health of body, health of mind, right? Peace in the spirit. That, whether it's that or toxic things that are happening or unhealthy things that are happening, there's a root in all of it that we try and cut at the fruit And we end up in this cycle that doesn't ever actually solve the problem. But instead we can say, hey, this is a symptom of something else deeper. And how can I use this experience and see this pattern in my life to go deeper and evaluate the root? And that is me just wholeheartedly being like, here you go, worlds, or whoever listens to this, of, oh, interesting. There's a root in my heart that still has a chip on her shoulder and, some level of, and I guess it's a thing of like, I don't need to prove myself, but like, I just want to connect with people. And what would create more disconnection? And what is my responsibility and my part in that disconnection? And how can I own that? So anyways, I hope that this makes sense. Again, recording these podcasts, this is still pretty new for me, is really helpful to ideally walk down this linear, I don't know if I ever say that word right, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3 progressive line of thinking versus Q to R to T to L and the 50 tabs open on the computer, right? Kind of example, but rather saying, here's a spaghetti of my brain and I'm trying to straighten out the noodles in a way that you can slurp it up and it makes sense for you, right? So if you battle comparison, why not encourage? Next time you get on social media and if someone pops up on the screen, whether it's a beautiful model and how they look or someone that's traveling the world and living a Pinterest life, maybe encourage them. Like, wow, good for you. And see how that feels for you. See how that feels for your heart and your mind and your energy. Right? See what that does for you to genuinely encourage someone else that you might be envious of or jealous of or want to trade places with. And secondly, if you find yourself competing for approval or self-assurance or to feel that you're worthy, then what does it look like to create from a space of your beautiful giftedness and your strengths and what makes you come alive? What excites you? And when you turn that energy in and you focus on creating, how does that feel? What does that look like? So let me know. Let me know if this resonated with you and if you made any tweaks coming out of this conversation, because this is again, a present thing and something that's been there's been seeds of it over the course of many, many years. So much love, my people. I hope you're doing amazing. Have an incredible day and we'll talk soon.